So, good morning. Welcome to Baby Steps. Baby Steps is a podcast dedicated to exploring the personal and emotional journeys of mothers from the moment they discovered they were pregnant. So, through their pregnancy experience to the birth of their child. The show also digs into the advice that they received, what they read, and the safety precautions they took as they prepared the birth of their child. So, this morning I have Kristina Owens, mother of two. Two boys, ages 5 and 2, and we're just gonna really sit back and talk about your pregnancy journey, leading up to your the day you found out you're pregnant to giving birth. So, what was it like your initial discovery of finding out you were pregnant? Like, were you alone? Did you know beforehand? Like, how did the day that you found out?
Yeah, the day I found out for my first child, who's going to be six soon, so almost 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I was at a conference. I forget where, but not here. It was a plane ride away, and I just didn't even want a glass of wine. I was like, and I just want to go. I don't really want to hang out at night. Like the day was fine, but I just wanted to snuggle into bed. And it didn't really hit me until like this, you know, second night in. I was like, hmm. And then I started to freak out. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then when I landed back here, I waited like, I guess it was 24 hours. Like when I landed home on a Sunday,
Mhm.
I went directly to the pharmacy. I got a pregnancy test and I came home. I secretly took it.
Mhm.
And then it was positive, and I just, oh my gosh, I can't, you can't even explain that feeling. You're a mom
Right.
too, but it was just
Right.
like insane. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how am I going to tell Matt? How am I, so I put it
Yeah.
in like a little gift bag, which maybe
Okay.
that's gross, but I put it in a little
No, I
gift
mean
bag.
everybody has their own, like for me, I was like I kind of like I knew before I even took the test. Like
Yeah.
I just knew. Like it was a different feeling than the normal, okay, my cycle's about to come. Like I just
Right.
knew. Like I
Right.
knew. So I remember
Totally.
yeah. And
Totally. I
that
felt
was
the same.
almost 15 years ago. So
Ah, so crazy, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, I gave it to him in a big gift bag, and it was
Mhm.
just like the coolest experience ever.
Yeah. So what was his initial reaction?
I mean, he just like kind of he was like in shock, like, are you serious? And
Yeah.
then, he kind of put his head in his hands and we hugged, and I don't know. It
It's
was
like a
just such
moment
a
you'll never
moment.
forget. Yeah.
We were like in the basement, like
Yeah.
it wasn't anything crazy
Yeah.
special.
Hmm.
Actually, we were living at my in-laws at mom and dad's house. And, so it was nothing crazy special, nothing big, but it was so special all at the
Special,
same
right.
time. So.
So, at what point did you eventually like share the news to tell people? Like, who did you tell first? Like, how long did you wait to tell people that, like sometimes people have that safe period, like, because you're so excited, especially when it's your first one, right? So, like, did you initially like tell your siblings, your parents, like your closest circle? Like, at what point did you start to tell people? How far long did you wait the 12 weeks?
We waited 6 weeks. I wanted to tell everybody in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
but my husband is a little bit more reserved
Yeah.
and he didn't want to. So, of course, I will respect him.
Yeah.
So, I think we waited like, I don't know, I think we waited 6 weeks ish, not the
Yeah.
full 12. I think we waited about 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and we told his parents and my parents maybe at that time.
Hmm.
And I don't really remember, to be honest. I don't really
Right.
remember who, but I think we probably just from that point started to dribble into the family and our siblings. And I don't think we did social media or anything until later.
Hmm. So, because you have two children, was there, I mean, obviously you're equally as excited, but it's a different feeling from your first time pregnant ever to finding out you're pregnant with your second son, right? So, was the reaction still the same? The excitement still the, did you tell people sooner? Did you tell people later? Like, what was the difference between the first, initial and then, pregnancy and then, a few years later finding out you're pregnant with your second son?
Man, it was also a very exciting time because it kind of took us a little while to get pregnant the second time. 8 months,
Hmm.
actually. It took us 8 months. And, I'm really, really careful about my diet and the way that I live and all these things. So it was kind of annoying. But whatever, it's a miracle, right? And
Right.
so it took us a little while. It took us 8 months. So when we did get pregnant with him, it was just like I had actually prayed like I don't know, that month before.
Yeah.
And I was like, just if you can send me a sign, like if I get pregnant, then I know, everything's good. I got pregnant and I freaked out. I couldn't believe it. And it was the best thing ever.
So, so going back to having your first son, like what changed in the early stages of your pregnancy? Like, just is there anything like how did your life change? Did you like from the time you find out, was there anything life changing at that moment? Did it happen second trimester until he was born? Like, was there any significant, because you are always like, it's not like you really, and you could have changed your diet. I know that you're like a healthy eater, you're very conscious of that stuff. So it's not like you had to you always watch what you ate. You always exercise. So is there anything that was really life changing at that moment for you, discovering you were pregnant with your first son? That if not, that's fine. I was just wondering if there's anything that, you know,
No,
stands
not
out that
really.
changed.
I mean, with the fact that like eating healthy, right? So with him within the
Right.
first, well, I guess it was about 2 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I was making this big casserole of like chicken and broccoli and bacon and all the things. Oh, Brussels sprouts. And as soon as I finished making it, like fresh out of the oven, I was like, oh, mm-mm, nope, not eating that. Somebody get that out of the house right now.
Yes, I had a similar experience. So that was when I was pregnant with Layla.
Yeah.
I never had morning sickness, never felt sick. I had the easiest pregnancy ever. Like I was like really lucky. And there was the one time it was St. Patrick's Day and my husband was making corned beef and cabbage and I was like, "Oh heck no. This has to go. This has to go." And like that's the one thing that I remember the one time I did not feel well because that just like I just
Push you over the
yeah,
edge.
yeah, over the edge. And I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever eaten it really since then.
Yeah, it took me a
Weird.
while too.
Yeah.
I eat all that now, but like, it definitely took a while. It
Yeah.
took a while. So, I mean, that was like the biggest thing I think for me. I agree. I didn't have I had a great pregnancy. I didn't have any morning sickness.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, gas pains was like my biggest problem in that
Yeah.
pregnancy. It was kind of crazy. Until like, I don't know how long it was like almost all my pregnancy. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't every day, but in few and far between when it did happen, it was extraordinarily painful.
Yeah.
But other than that, like the day to day, no problem. And the
Now, were
first
your
3 months, I
mhm.
ate a lot of carbs. That was it.
Were your pregnancies very different from the first to the second, to the second? Or were they kind of
I would
pretty
say
much the same?
pretty much the same, except maybe with my second, I did feel probably a little bit crappier. Like
Yeah.
still great pregnancy overall, but I would say
Right.
the first 4 months I felt like bleh,
Yeah.
more
Just
than
not
I
yourself.
did with my
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
So, is there anything that you were told by others, your in-laws or friends, or that you read that helped influence your journey at all? Like to change, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. Everyone has advice, right? So you
Yeah.
take it or leave it. And I know one of the biggest things that, like, the mistake that I made that I try to share with others is don't hold them to put them to sleep. Like, that's just because everyone's going to do it. I just knew how hard it was for me, and I only had one. So it's and you still need to do stuff. So, like, that was the one thing that just, I don't know why that was so important to me. It just, because I felt like I couldn't, I just, it wasn't easy. At nighttime was
Sure.
like painful. I wanted to, sometimes poke my eyeballs out with a toothpick. It was just because you were
Yeah.
tired and like if it was just difficult. So is there anything that you read or took away, or you just kind of did your own thing?
No, my greatest um lesson was in having a second because my
Hmm.
first one, I didn't I didn't quote prepare. I'm not an anxious person. I was very relaxed about the whole thing, except sleep training. I really wanted to, kind of like you, I wanted to avoid that. I wanted to do everything I could to have him to sleep fine. And that's the only book I read. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't do a birthing class. I didn't do anything. I just read this one book about sleep training. And it's so funny because it's like literally the dead opposite of what I actually got. I think sometimes when you hyper focus on something, it's like the very thing that smacks you in the face. Um, but also, your first child, you're pretty neurotic, like, and I don't think there's any way to go around that. I think,
Right.
you could tell a new mom all the things, and some advice is great, but at the
Right.
same time, like you don't even know what advice is great until you go through it. Like
Right.
there is no going around being a first mom. And so I had him on like feeding schedules. I was like neurotic about having him in a dark room with a sound machine and all of these things, which are all great things, but in a more relaxed way. So that child never really slept. I mean, truly, I had to sleep train him, cry through the night like 4 times because you sleep train him. That worked amazingly. And then in 2 months, they learn a new thing and then they sleep regress. And it's just like, and to this day, he still comes in your bed. My second one was way, way more chill. Me personally,
Yeah.
I didn't follow anything. I didn't follow. The only thing I was aware of was a wake window, and I just knew at the whatever age he was at, like I had an idea of his wake window to be mindful of. If it
Hmm.
was only an hour, then that's when I was gonna guide him to go to sleep. But I wasn't like going crazy about it. And feeding, like if he was hungry, I fed him. If he cried, I fed him. My first one, I was like, I made him cry to try to reach like a 4 hour window of like you
Hmm.
eat and then 4 hours later you eat. I like it so honestly, I have PTSD from doing that to my first child. Everybody, he's fine, happy, normal, and more than loved in this whole world. But wow, I definitely did not do that with my second. If he wanted to eat, even if it was an hour after he ate the last time, he got to eat. And that works out way better, in my opinion, for my situation.
Oh goodness. So let me ask you this. Did you have a birthing plan when like so you're going through your pregnant did you and it's coming you're like almost your third trimester. Did you have a birthing plan?
No, no, I am very just no. I mean, I wanted to do a vaginal birth. I wanted to be mindful of my aftercare. Like I didn't want to take oxycodone, for instance, if I didn't have to, but I would if I was in dire pain. I didn't have to at all.
Hmm.
But um if I needed an epidural, I would get the epidural. And that was it. I did
Did you
not
take
want
it out? Did you have an epidural or
yeah,
no?
I did. I didn't want to have
I went in
surgery.
asking for it.
No, I didn't go
I
in.
did. I went in. I
Oh,
was like, my experiences, I didn't have any labor pains before I was out all day and I came home and my water just broke.
right.
And I was like, I went in the hospital. I had like, I was like, when can I get the epidural? Because my sister before me had a baby. She was like, oh, you gotta have. I went in asking for that
Yeah.
because I just.
Yeah. I mean, by the time it came, like that
Hmm.
morning of laboring, yes, by the time I got to the hospital, I was like, oh my gosh, please give it to me. But up until
So
the
then,
moment of having labor pains,
hmm.
no, I had no
No.
strict plans. I wanted to just listen to my body and just do what I needed, utilize the things if I needed them. And that I really didn't want surgery, but
Right.
I of course went in with the mindset of like I just want to use all my educated opinions in the moment if it's necessary or if it's not. And of
Hmm.
course, whatever, if it was needed, fine. But a vaginal birth was probably my only plan.
And how many hours were you in labor with the first one?
I started laboring at 2:30 in the morning. It got to like every 5 minutes pretty quickly. Well, from like 2:30 to 4:30, I remember hitting my husband and being like, I think it's time to go now. It's like every 5 minutes. The hospital is 45 minutes away. So we left at 4:30 in the morning. And then I didn't have baby until 7:30 at night.
Oof.
Yeah. But the pushing part was fine. Like
Yeah.
once it came time to actually push, it was like 3 pushes. Probably
Yeah.
took not even 5 minutes to
Yeah.
get
I
him
think,
out.
yeah,
So
that's the, yeah. And
it
how
was
about the
awesome.
second one? Was it long labor, short labor?
This a little shorter. I started getting you know, contractions or whatever at 2 in the afternoon. Well, the morning I kind of knew. I was like, oh, you know how you feel like a tiny bit of cramping, like maybe I have to go to the bathroom.
Hmm.
That started when I woke up, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, today's gonna be the day. But I was totally fine until 2 p.m. That's when I was. It went from 0 to 100, and he came at 9:30.
Okay.
So, but again, his pushing was 3 pushes and out also. So listen, I'll labor, but what do you even define labor? Do you define labor the pushing part or
No,
the
I just think from the
contraction part?
beginning, the contraction, like I mean, hey, look, it was pretty easy for me. Like I said, they say typically you follow your mother, like what,
Hmm.
her experience was like. So mine was quick. I mean, my water broke at 8. I went to the hospital at 9, and she was born 9 p.m. and she was born at 3:58 a.m. So
Yeah,
from beginning to end, and that,
it's
and
kind of
they
nice,
told
right?
they was gonna say, oh, it's gonna be sometime tomorrow, late in the day, because it's your first baby. No, she was not. Like she was like, mm-mm.
Nope, I'm coming now.
Yeah, yep, 3 weeks early. She was like, I'm coming now. She was like, she was ready to see the world.
That's great.
Um, so was there, and I might have asked this already, any big difference between the first and the second pregnancy, or everything was like anything that like really stands out that you would say?
No, just
Any
that. Like,
cravings, anything that you craved in the
I
first
didn't.
one? No?
Not at all. And I really, really didn't. I just felt a little more meh for like the first 4 months of my second pregnancy. And that
Yeah.
pregnancy was through the winter. So,
Hmm.
that could be why. My first one, I was pregnant through the summer.
Summer.
So I was outside, vitamin
Right.
D, sunshine. My
Right.
second one was really through the dark. Like, I got pregnant. I found out I was pregnant like September, I think
Mm.
ish. Yeah. And so it was like the entire winter pregnant. So
Yeah. So now, like again, your third trimester, what safety precautions were like when you were preparing, let's say the nursery, or just overall getting ready for baby, the birth, to come home, and like what safety precautions did you take, whether getting the nursery ready or whatever? Like what was most important to you for baby's safety when he came home?
um
Like, was it the nursery? Was it the type of mattress he was sleeping on? Was it like,
no, just kind of having a bassinet next to me, I guess, for the first little bit.
okay, yeah. And how about was the formula important? Did you breastfeed?
Oh
Like, what was,
yes.
yeah. So,
Oh
like, what
yeah.
that, like, what was,
That is number one, I think, in my opinion.
hmm
Um, I mean, not for anybody who can or can't breastfeed or whatever.
right.
That's totally fine.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody has their own journey, of course, which is what this podcast is about.
Right. And
But
and
for
my
me,
plan was to breastfeed. It just did not happen. And,
right,
it made,
right.
that was the one thing through my whole pregnancy that I wanted to do. Like, that was most important. And it
See
just
how that
didn't happen.
happens? Let's take a moment just for a second. This is, I'm a PA, I'm in the medical field. At every moment, not whether it was my best friend from high school, whether it was a patient when I was on the OBGYN floor, whether it's you or my own personal experience, every time somebody wants something so bad, has a plan, like this is it, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want so desperately, it literally doesn't happen. I
Mhm.
and I don't know if that is just my own personal opinion. That is not an educated anything to tell anybody anything, but truly going in with not without a plan. It's important to have like thoughts and options and ideas of what you would prefer, but do not hold on to anything tight because I'm telling you, emotionally anyway,
Right.
holding on to it so
Right.
tight. like not seeing an alternative, it really kind of, I think, kicks everybody in the butt over and over and over. I've seen this. My
Right.
friend was like, I'm having a home birth. I'm doing like, there's not an option. That didn't work. Like, and she is all the things. She's somebody who you would think have a home birth, incredibly healthy, like all these things. No, it didn't work. She labored for like 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, safety for me was, I guess, just having the bassinet by the bed, making sure I could hear him, and breastfeeding was a really big part of my first my first pregnancy. My second was a little different.
Yeah. And now that you have two boys, a toddler and, a 5-year-old soon to be 6, now what is most important as far as, I mean, like safety, like obviously everything as a mom is important, but like, what do you feel? Is it what they're eating? Is it like, are you just kind of like, you know, what's most important to you at this age that they are now? Just
Definitely food. And um I would say food and emotions, like making sure that they love themselves more than
Mhm.
anything else. Um, Emotional regulation, just being able to really kind of think things through and really have self-confidence. Like that's my number one thing. And food is like, I think, a very big driver of that.
Mhm.
So they go hand in hand for me. So yes, I do everything I possibly can to keep their diets clean, at least in the home. And my number one wish for them is to have truly be comfortable in their own skin with self-confidence and self-love where else can really rock their boat, you know?
Right. And last but not least, do you have any suggestions or any advice for moms to be or current moms that might be having some of the same situations or experience you have, whether it be sleep or food or just overall, as a, newly seasoned mom, because your boys are still young, but you have two. Any advice that you can give that someone might, even if it's one person, take away from
Well, because I do so much work in the field of health, holistic health, and kids, I would say that number one, take a breath. Nothing has to be exactly perfect or exactly what anybody else says. Really listening to yourself and your
Mhm.
baby and is so important. Um, and do all the things you can do to provide the nutrients. Try to stay away from processed foods. And also, if you have a really colicky baby, I
Mhm.
really encourage you to look a little bit more into it. Go to a chiropractor. Your conventional doctor may or may not know really what's going on and just call it colic, but you can keep
Mhm.
looking. Like most of the time, babies are colic for a reason. And of course, some babies are going to cry because they have gas. Like that's not what I'm really talking about. I'm
Mhm.
saying a relentlessly colicky, unmanageable baby. I encourage everybody to explore, to look into what causes colic, to think about dietary changes, to see a chiropractor, to see more of a holistic practitioner who can really kind of address those things. It could be just one simple adjustment of, I don't know, maybe they're deficient in a nutrient, or maybe it's, whatever. Maybe they just need a chiropractic adjustment, or maybe they just need something, and it could
Mhm.
make the world of a difference. You don't have to just sit there and struggle through this alone.
Right.
Like there's always other resources, there's always other tools, there are brilliant minds outside of your own doctor. I mean, go to your own doctor, but
Right,
also
right,
outside of your own doctor,
right.
there are brilliant minds with lots of wonderful adjustments that you can make. So don't sit there and be suffering and miserable. And also don't go crazy looking for an
Yeah,
answer. Just do what you can to take a breath, learn a little bit more stuff, talk to a little bit more other practitioners, and see how you could be supported, because you should be supported and you shouldn't do it alone.
cool. Well, incredible, Christina. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. You've been listening to Baby Steps, sponsored by Oxford and Soho Baby. So if you're in the market for a new crib, glider, dresser, and more, we would love for you to check out our line of furniture at www.oxfordbabyandkids.com or www.sohobabyandkids.
Awesome.
Thanks. Have a great day, Christina.
Bye,
Thank you so
Kristen.
much. Bye bye.